slowed down a little bit, but boy, is he trying hard.
Well, as we watch the two NEWMAN HAAS cars leading this race, we realize how quickly the tide can turn in automobile racing. The last few races have been all Penske, Penske, Penske. Now, the irony is we come here to a track that is owned and run by Roger Penske, and his cars are not doing well. The championship is being a lead, and the championship is being wrested from Emerson Fittipaldi by Mansell. And these cars, as you see them here, are running 1-2.
Mario Andretti tries his best to close in. He was the first pole sitter here at Michigan International. Now, 25 years later, he turned the fastest qualifying lap of any IndyCar driver in history. We asked him about the significance of that accomplishment.
Yeah, it has a lot of significance for me, a lot of personal satisfaction, and then, of course, the way my team just rallies behind me, I just feel so much like they deserve it. They deserve every bit that I can bring home, so that's an extra incentive for me to go after. And today we just tried, I think we did everything pretty right, you know, all of our guessing, you know, bang bang what we did last year, and triple satisfaction when it just all worked out.
You know, even Nigel, very, very complimentary of Mario, saying, boy, you know, at his age, he's still so very racy.
I bet he's calling the pits right now saying, hey, who's this guy passing me? I'm leading the race. He's a lap down. Who is he?
I think he's got a real good clue as Mario moves to the inside, trying to get alongside Nigel, and does so very quickly. Now, is that a solid pass, or was it an instruction? Was it a tactic? Nigel let him go.
No, it was a solid pass. Nigel didn't really let him go. I think Mario just been putting too much pressure on him because those guys are not planning it. Nigel knows that if a yellow comes out right now, that Mario's going to come around, be right behind him, and that's like a lethal weapon.
There is the man, of course, Carl Haas, working in the pits, who would know what all the political ramifications are between these two superstars.
Take a look again at Mario Andretti. He closes to the back of Nigel Mansell, picks up the draft, and it works very well for him. Well, look at him just roll forward as soon as he's in there.
And remember, Mario, very much a man looking ahead in his life. He and Deanne, his wife, are planning a new house in Nazareth, actually on, I think, Michael's property, and he's looking for a lot more racing. This is not his last season. He's not hanging it up at all. Talk of founding a team.
Look at the speed. Mansell at 215. Mario Andretti cut that last lap at 218 miles an hour. So Nigel was holding him up.
Yes, he certainly was. But remember, it's just a shift of a gear. It's a gear ratio different. The more RPM they turn, and they'll turn about like when they want to, about 13,000, maybe a little bit more than 13,000 RPM. Probably racing them about 12,500 RPM.
But of course, if you are going to come down to a gear that's going to give you a little more power, you're also going to burn more fuel. We've had a race with only 2 yellows, and fuel can be a factor here. How wise is that?
Well, they'll only do it like a passing gear, like a kick-down gear on an automatic transmission, Paul. They know that the fuel is going to get bad if they sit there and turn more than 13,000 RPM.
And having a kick-down gear is something that all these cars still routinely do.
Yes, they certainly do, and they don't even have to use the clutch when they shift them. The gear ratio is only about 10 to 15 hundredths difference. But remember, the more RPM, the more rim wheel torque, or the more power to the rear wheels that you get.
Robbie Gordon, as he comes around Bobby Rahal, this is a fight for position as well. Rahal was in 10th, now Gordon has it. Gary Gerald, you have an update on Robbie?
Well, indeed, Paul. In fact, I think we may be able to get a word with A.J. Foyt about Robbie Gordon. A.J., you got a problem with boost?
Well, it seemed like it, but it's come back to about 44 inches. We fell to about 41, so I don't know unless the wastegate stuck or something, but right now it's not 45 inches, 44, but we're still running between 215, 217. If we can finish, we'll be in good shape. We just got by Rahal, move up another spot.
This young man's first time at Michigan. He's been pretty impressive on these high bags.
Well, that's true. You know, that's all we want to do is finish.
All right, AJ. Thank you.
We're past the halfway point, 149 laps into the record book, just about 101 laps to go. Robbie Gordon, there's the serial scoring. Great interface between our graphics folks and the computers here able to give us this enhanced information now, doing a great job down there.
You know, just stop and think now. When they put that pad to hold his head up against, he had to get reused to that all over again. So he spent a lot of time that we haven't seen him on the track just trying to get his driving accompanied to where his head is going to be and how the pad's going to feel. Because obviously he had a helmet strap before.
You see him rip by Emerson Fittipaldi there, of course. Remember that he, too, like Paul Tracy, is 24 years old. And don't think that Gordon hasn't been grinding his teeth a little bit this year as he's watched Paul Tracy succeed. Now Tracy is out of the race, and Gordon is on the move.
By the way, we mentioned at the beginning of the race the possibility of showers in the area of being 60%. It looks like that's drifting slowly and slowly away from us. It's bright sun over the track right now, and it does not appear from looking out the top of the giant grandstand that you see on your right there here at Michigan International that there is any threatening weather anywhere off to the west, and that's where it come from.
Yeah, and just look at the blue sky right out of Scott's car. Look at the blue sky up in the air. That looks so much better than it did for us earlier, Paul.
Goodyear runs in 7th place right now. Roberto Guerrero is just ahead of him in 6th place, and Scott Goodyear has been closing in.
This is an important drive for Guerrero. By far his best run since Long Beach, much earlier in the year. He's doing whoops as I speak of him. He's making a pit stop.
Guerrero has gone a full 39 laps since his last stop, so he peels off. Goodyear screams on past, and this should be routine for Roberto Guerrero. He's a little bit out of the pit stop sequence. Nigel Mansell has gone 33 laps since his last stop, so you would expect within the next few at least Nigel Mansell will be turning down into the pits, and that will give Mario Andretti, who's on the same lap, an opportunity to catch up. They think he's about 14 laps away from the stop, though.
Roberto had a little bit of front-end push because I noticed they turned the left front wing up just a little bit. It's a nice, soft adjustment. They gave it one full turn, about 1 degree for a wing that small. Nice adjustment.
Like Guerrero, like Leinendijk, Guerrero had his background in road racing, but has really come to excel on these very fast ovals. Interesting.
Now, as you saw Roberto leaving, Sam, you could see he got over that yellow line a little bit. He's got to be careful the Wally doesn't see that because that's what the stop-and-go penalties come from.
Nigel Mansell still the leader. Mario Andretti, by getting around him, joined him on the leader lap in 2nd place. In 3rd, a lap behind is Raul Boisel, then Ari, then Teo Fabi, and then Scott Goodyear 3 laps behind. 154 laps complete at Michigan. Back at the Michigan 500, Teo Fabi, 5th place. Started in 8th, been running a very steady run. He's winless this season, driving for Jim Hall, the Hall BDS team.
That's a team that has, in the past, done very little testing, but Jim has taken over and said, hey, we've got to do some testing, development work, because we're sliding behind. And he's starting to run a lot better from it, Paul.
Testing, of course, is the order of the day if you want to be successful, but testing is also some of what's driving some of the cost of IndyCar racing up. So they're trying to limit that a little bit, aren't they, Bobby?
Well, testing wears out engines. Engines are, you know, you're looking at roughly $2.8 million a year in a normal engine program, so it really is costing a lot of money. And if you break pieces, that costs a lot of money, too.
Well, Fabi was 5th at Phoenix and 4th at Long Beach earlier in the year, but he has not had a high finish since then. And the team, ironically, seems to have been improving, but they haven't had the results. So this will be very encouraging as he lies 5th right now.
A lot of talk about a drug-free sport. You're talking drug-free. IndyCar racing, auto racing in general, definitely one. And in fact, the organizations that try and promote drug awareness do get involved with motorsports for that very reason. For example, today here at the track as Teo Fabi makes his turn in, there were 25 police cars from the different districts here in Michigan associated with DARE, the Drug Abuse Resistance Education Program, with kids in the cars that competed for the opportunity to be here, and they're having a great time here today. Teo Fabi, 5th place, 41 laps since his last stop, and Jack Arut's right there.
Well, Mario Andretti, trying to bring his car to a stop, does it nicely, lifts up the visor, and will take some water and some fluids. It's been very hot here during the stop. A nominal stop for Mario. No major changes contemplated by the Newman Haas racing team. But they are going over the radiator areas very carefully, removing any debris. He's off and away in 15.2 seconds. Nigel Mansell will be back in this time around, gentlemen.
Nigel Mansell has carried the car at 43 laps. He'll go 44 before he makes his stop. And Mario Andretti carried it 43. Jack, here comes Nigel.
Well, Paul, interesting to note that for Nigel Mansell, he has requested no changes on his car during this pit stop. He has requested, though, a change for the drink bottle. It seems that the buffeting he's been undergoing has given him a severe headache. So his PR man, Mike Knight, has added several aspirin to the bottle, and they are going to take as much fluid on board as they possibly can. They made a very quick stop. Now it's being held back by taking on a full load of fuel, 16.9 seconds, a little bit slower than his teammate Mario.
Yeah, one of the things, Paul and Jack, that really gets to a driver that causes the headaches is your joints. All your joints in your neck always get pushed down really hard. Besides going to the right from the G's, push down, and that gives the guys a headache.
Boiselle trying to get out of the pits, but they had to get a little extra assistance at that rear wing to push him and get him going.
He's having trouble with that first gear. There's no question about it. We're going to have to look for that in the future.
It's
I wonder
a
if
clutch.
it's even a first gear there or a clutch.
Yeah.
It's a clutch problem. But what they're doing, guys, is they're pushing it, he's chunking it into first gear after they get it moving. Because they have what we call dog rings in those transmissions, they can do that.
Boiselle comes back up to speed after his stop, but that cost him a great deal. He's now fourth in the order, and he should drop even further down. Jack Arute, do you have an update on Raul?
Well, Paul, remember in that last pit stop when we talked to Dick Simon, he said they were having trouble getting the car into a neutral gear.
Right.
That's generally the first indication that you've got a clutch problem. As he came down to the open end towards turn number 1, you could see that he was definitely not in the throttle the way he should be, although you could hear the engine really coming up to sawing. The wheels weren't turning. It looks as if a clutch is going to befall Raul Boiselle. Let's check in with Gary Gerald.
Jack, we watch as Ari Lyondike glides in and hits his mark perfectly. He had moved up to second in this rotation of pit stops. Of course, now he'll lose some ground. Ari has been very fast on the super speedways. You can see a dramatic change. They cranked about a turn or a turn and a half up here in the front wing. Now he's off the Jack in 14.7, I believe I heard.
And Gary, you see he declined his drink bottle there. Ari Lyondike is extremely fit, and evidently he is not suffering from these conditions.
Now they took wing out of the left front, as Gary alluded to, and that means that his front end was a little too tight. The rear end was a little bit loose. So Ari's chasing the track just like the other guys are.
Ari Lyondike, as he came out of the pits, and Raul Boiselle right there to make the move. They are a battle for position as Boiselle picks up third place.
And let's remember with Boiselle now, he probably doesn't have the hydraulic part of his clutch working. The clutch itself is good, Sam and Paul. What happens is it's hydraulic that works the clutch release bearing. The hydraulic is back there where there's a tremendous amount of heat in the bell housing, and that's what often gives way.
Nigel Mansell, the leader of the race, just cruises around Ari Lyondike. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Paul, we talk about the wear and tear, the 500 miles on the bumps at Michigan. It's tough on the driver, equally tough on the equipment. One of the problems that's evolved this weekend pertains to this particular piece. This is Ari Lyondike's backup car. This is the hat on the bell housing, and there's so much jostling and traction back here in these parts of the suspension members that there's been a failure on a couple of cars. So many of the cars on the Lola chassis have beefed up this particular area for this race today. And it was through the hard work of the Gallus team last night that they updated a special fitting here to give this a little more strength so that it doesn't get that twisting and torsion action, that it would be able to withstand 500 miles. The last thing you want is one of these things to break when you're at these dramatic speeds, because it's going to put you in the wall and you're going to hurt big time.
Now you see that big dot on the right. You see the little bolts there. They put a brace right there down to the straight bolt, the big one that runs right down in the transmission, and that's what's going to protect it. Unfortunately, the guys didn't know about this until yesterday or last night when a bunch of them started breaking, Paul.
And of course the point is that there was no way to test those quick fixes either. So, you know, there's a lot of doubt in a driver's mind when he's going around here with this stuff happening.
Well, Adrian Fernandez had one break yesterday. He was very fortunate, Sam, that they came in just before it let go all the way.
Yep.
Further update on Raul Boiselle from Jack.
Well, Paul, we checked, and what the problem is just like the pit stop before, he cannot get it into gear. So what they're going to have to do in the future for pit stops, and there's a long way to go in this race, is they're going to have to push him off in second gear. That will make it a very lengthy time on pit road. They got to hope for some yellows.
A lot of serious conversations down in the Dick Simon pits. Raul Boiselle's pit in particular, as no doubt they talk about that problem, Jack.
Paul, let's that's exactly what they're doing. They're trying to discuss what way to remedy the problem in the next pit stop. Because when you don't have the low gear necessary, then they